Allspring's just released a retirement report that challenges what they call conventional wisdom. Here with insight on how to think outside the box about savings and even Social Security and Medicare is Nate Miles, Allspring Head of Retirement, for our Retirement Ready segment brought to you by Fidelity Investments. Nate, good to see you. Let's talk about just the environment in which we're in. Everyone talking about a potential recession, a potentially flat S&P, if not down 5-10%. How do you factor that in if you are anywhere near retirement?
I think the best way to do it is something that they hopefully would have done many years ago, and that's start saving early. We think about the regrets that most of our survey respondents had. It was that they did not start saving early enough. The way that respondents or near retirees that we surveyed are looking to solve for this problem is really by working retirement. 30% of people that are near retirement, so those are people that we expect to retire in the next 10 years, have considered working in retirement. But 25% of them have resigned to either working later and retiring at a later date and or just expecting less in retirement. So people are responding to it, I think, in really sensible ways. But the main regret from our study, I think, helps to create more resiliency and hopefully would help them to avoid some of that regret, many decades ago.
And within your survey here, you go through a number of common misconceptions. When we talk about preparing for retirement, one of the things that you dive into is savings targets. How strict do you need to be in terms of what your target is, and how do you identify that target?
Yeah, I think that the general rule of thumb is more is always better than less when it comes to saving, right? Because you're growing your pool of assets faster. You're also living off less. And that means when you hit retirement, there's less income that you were using for consumption initially. Generally speaking, anywhere above 10% is a great place to start, particularly if you start earlier. One of the things that concerned us about the survey actually was that people that didn't start saving until after 40 were only saving 50% of the time at about a 10% rate. And that was roughly equivalent to people who began saving in their 20s and 30s. And so even when people are saving later, they're not actually making up for kind of those 10 or 20 years in terms of that delayed start date.
And no matter where you are in this process, you're certainly concerned with Social Security and Medicare benefits. How do you factor that in?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is if you consider the employer-sponsored retirement world, for the better part of probably 2 decades, we've been trying to make things simpler. So doing things like auto-enrollment and auto-escalation and auto-deferral into things like target date funds. And that's really because for the majority of participants, they either lack the engagement or financial literacy to make oftentimes the best decision for them. And so things like auto-enrollment, auto-escalation will help resolve some of those issues on their behalf. And we're seeing more and more plans add that. With the recent passing of Secure 2.0, we expect that even more participants in employer-sponsored plans will do that. What's interesting is that while conventional wisdom is that many early savers don't have the engagement or sophistication, as they move towards retirement, more than half of retirees and 56% of near retirees are self-educated on things like when to retire, how much income they're going to need, and the sources of income they're going to generate from retirement. So there's kind of a juxtaposition between what we expect and actually what near retirees and retirees are doing as they approach that time frame.
Nate, breaking it down even further by gender here, 31% of women are anxious about retirement versus 19% of men. So it looks like from this survey, women are a little bit more just concerned about the amount of money that they have saved up. What do they need to know and really what they need to consider before retiring?
Yeah, and this is something that we've seen going back for many, many years. We've been doing this study at Allspring for 20 years now. And this is something that we see consistently. Generally, women are less confident in retirement and generally more anxious. Part of that is they oftentimes are not in the workforce for the entirety of their career. And so they're not benefiting from that time in savings. This is one area where, as I mentioned a moment ago, the autos will really help. Where we're going to get more and more women in the workforce actually saving for retirement for longer periods of time. The autos are a great equalizer as it pertains to both how long people are saving to the extent they're in the workforce and also the amount that they save over time. So that's certainly one thing that we've seen. The other thing that we see in the data as pertains to women is that they are more actively engaged. They tend to spend more time thinking about how much income they're going to need in retirement and oftentimes will more frequently talk with an advisor as they move towards that retirement phase more so than men do.
Certainly very important here. Nate Miles, Allspring head of retirement, for joining us. Thank you so much for Retirement Ready series brought to you by Fidelity Investments.